wait. What?
All right, well, what's up, everybody? It's April Fool's. I've been doing some yard work here at the house. I put some Miracle Grow on my head, and my hair just grew overnight. So I don't know what's going on here, but we're doing this live here, me and AR, and you're going to get to spend your April Fools with us. Hopefully, we don't act like fools tonight. AR, at least too bad, but I shouldn't say that because I've already started the foolery here with this wig. But
I'm a fool every day. Every day, I'm a fool.
Everybody was wondering if this whole live was an April Fool's trick. Surprise!
Right.
Here we
no,
are.
it's not.
I even brought my twin brother with me. Look at who joined me. My twin brother.
You better watch it. You better watch it. You're within arm's length there.
Yeah.
But no, welcome everybody to this live. We're excited. We've been talking about this since the last one was so successful, and we had such a good time. I know a lot of you guys had a good time, and just because it was successful, and we're just feeling kind of giddy tonight, I'm doing some giveaways. Okay, so what's going to happen is I got two different prizes. One will be you get to pick which Murder Metal Mayhem shirt you like. I'll hold them up. Got the original Murder Metal Mayhem shirts. And then we've got a zombie version of it with the guys in the podcast with me in a zombie motif there. So those are cool. So you get to pick which one you want. I've got the zombie ones in large and extra large, and the original just an extra large. And I'll send you a free die cut sticker, which these are super cool. Then the other prize will be one of my books. This is a novel I wrote called Deeper Than Dead. I'll sign it, and it comes with a special bookmark just for the book. So that'll be the second prize. So the way you'll win this is you're going to wait until toward the end. I'm going to give you two different trivia questions and an email address you can enter. And if you enter by midnight tonight, that's Central Time, that's my time zone, I'll do a random number generator and I'll pick the two winners, and you'll get the prizes pretty quick. So that's what we got in store. And we've got more than that, AR. We got a special guest coming on here. What did you want to say about it?
One of the coolest things is when you can reach out and build a bond with people like you and I have. And I reached out to one of my favorite people, along with you, that I watch every video he does. I really mentally see what he's projecting. I'm excited to have him join us here in a little while. He's going to be on a little later than we are, but he will be joining us, and that's Unfiltered Lucky. So
nice.
I worked hard to recruit him, but I'm a little disappointed because you don't have my size in those T-shirts.
I know.
I was going to put in 1,000 entries just to try to get myself.
Well, I am doing some new shirts that'll be coming up, and I'll make sure I get your size, AR, because these are shirts we've had for a while, and I was surprised. Always, whenever you order shirts, you always order the size that nobody seems to want, and they all want the size you don't have. So that's how it always is, which is the
Jen and I were talking about it. We were thinking about doing some cool stuff like that too, but
yeah,
we were going to give away prison jumpsuit outfits with the convict's thoughts on it. And then
I was going to say a T-shirt with the stripes, like a prison top. That would be really cool. That would be awesome, dude.
Shirt, but
yeah, she wanted to do dog shirts, but I just wanted everybody to know what it was feeling like to wear a nice prison jumpsuit. I'll sign it for everybody myself.
There you go. That's funny.
Maybe possibly coming.
Yeah, it's just like signing my bail papers all over again.
Oh, God.
But
so what did you want to open this up with tonight, AR? We got we're going to do some Idaho 4. I know that's what everybody wants to hear these days. And we're just kind of bouncing off some ideas. And what do you think for the opening topic here, if you were to pick one?
Well, you know what? Number one, I got to give you a big shout out in one of your recent videos that you did in regards to PTSD, helping an individual. Because I'm telling you, when I watched the actual footage of Brent Kopaka and the struggles he was having in that hotel hallway with law enforcement, I kept looking at my wife saying, how does nobody see it? How does nobody see this? And you know what, my friend? You did an interview that brought somebody else that's dealing with something very serious, and you, my friend, helped them.
Yes. Well, thank you, AR. I mean, I had, I wanted to do the Brent Kopaka story, but I didn't want to tell it like everybody else. I'm a disabled vet, Army. So I don't want to be disrespectful to the guy that, was awarded the Purple Heart, regardless of what he may or may not have done after that. But nonetheless, I got thinking about all the people I know. And one in particular that I interviewed, GW Ayers, he was my sergeant when I was at Fort Hood, Texas 30 years ago. And he suffers from it. He's retired now, and he's just an amazing individual. He speaks on it. He counsels people. He runs an organization that helps homeless vets. He's an amazing individual, and he came across that way in the special. And we used clips from that. Me and Blogger Girl did some of the stuff in between the dialogue with ARGW. And it was one of our viewers saw it and contacted me and said he was a retired firefighter from Idaho, of all places. And he retired to Arizona, and he's suffering tremendously from PTSD. He's even got some early dementia going on, and he needed some help. He didn't know where he could go as a civilian. So I went and did some digging and found a few options around where he lived and gave him the name of one. And the next day he emailed me, said he made an appointment. He's going to be seen and going to hopefully get himself well, and I just, so thankful, that he reached out. That was one of the reasons I did it, was not only to tell Brent's story, but to hopefully get people aware of PTSD. You don't have to be in the Army or the Marines to get PTSD. Here's a firefighter, right? People have PTSD that are not in the military, and I wanted to make that known. And I'm thankful that Tim, that's the guy's name, he gave me permission to use. I did a video that came out today, as you mentioned, that I read the emails and show them on the screen so you guys can see what, the back and forth was. And I'm going to talk to him on the phone tomorrow. So we're going to talk and hopefully, keep tabs on him and see how he does.
That's amazing. And one thing that I add just a little bit to that, because PTSD is very widespread, and a lot of people don't understand. Coming out of the penitentiary, more people come out with PTSD than what is really recognized out there. And it's very hard to get the help or the direction to battle that entire scenario. I have it personally. I have a very good support system that helps me overcome a bad day with it. But I'm not, it's hard to believe, but anybody that serves 5 years of worth of prison time straight in certain states, did you know when you came out, you're deemed disabled? You're eligible for disability after you served 5 years. Of course, it has to be on a higher, security yard, and it has to be straight. Because they deem that mentally it's just so hard to adjust and overcome what you've been through. And let me tell you, I served far more than 5 years numerous times. When I got out, I had no help. I had no counseling. I didn't have anybody other than the small support system like my wife. But that's not big enough to really overcome PTSD. So I have a lot of special love for you for what you were attempting to do to help those out there. And that's what we as content creators are really trying to do.
Right. And
It's
that's what I was trying to point out was, too many times the content creators are getting these, and I don't get too many of them, but occasionally the whole, you're just doing this for the clicks and the money and all this stuff. And, I'd like to know, what that person does for a job and if they would be willing to do it for nothing, because,
right.
we're doing a job and I don't see anything wrong with getting paid for your time. However, like you said, most of us have on other issues and other things we want to try to get across and maybe reach out and help some people in the process. And even if it's just for entertainment, I mean, if this helps a person after a shitty day at work, just kind of unwind and listen to us talk about this stuff, then great. That saved them maybe from getting in an argument with their spouse or, getting a little bit, too physical with one of their kids, that's great. So these videos and these channels help for a variety of reasons, not just, like a dramatic case like this one with the viewer I was talking about.
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. And I completely understand across the board cases like the Idaho 4 case, cases like the Delphi case, cases even like the Lost Children, the Sebastian Rogers, Summer Wells, a time ago that just seems to be cold. These are gut-wrenching discussions, but they're discussions that need to be had. Open minds need to be had to look at the totality of everything going on. We don't get on here as content creators to try to disrespect anybody. That's definitely not my nature. And I wouldn't be talking to you if it was your nature.
Right.
So, I get how difficult the conversations are. And I think a great place to even start transitioning out of your great work is a question that one of both of our viewers has sent to both of us. If in the Idaho 4 case, we were to extract Brian Koberger completely out of the picture, who else would fall into that visionary of what could be involved in the case? Would it be the fraternity boys, the fraternity altogether in its own self, not even just two singled out people? Or would it be someone more in the Emma Bailey Demetrius realm? I kind of just give that over to you because I want to hear your opinion, and I can't wait for Lucky to join us because I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
Take BK out of the picture. And what are your feelings of the Idaho 4?
And my answer to that question is both. I think that Emma and Demetrius were supplying substances to that campus, and those frats were deep in that kind of stuff from what I've heard. So I think that they're one and the same, basically. And I think if you want to know how it went down, read those 4chan posts, because I've yet to see something in those posts that is not right. Now, those posts came out long before we knew about BK, and I read those posts, and I had a chill the first time I read it because it seemed very real to me. I don't know why, because any drunk person sitting at a computer could come up with some crazy story, but the details in those posts are, to me, they've been accurate time and time again. Ethan's nickname, Loach's nickname, the fact that David Baracoa's dad was involved with a professional cleaning service.
Well, think about it all the way down to the detail. You could see in the girls' windows from the room of the fraternity.
As soon as the lights went out. As soon as the lights went out, they did it.
How would you know that if you hadn't been in both places to know that?
Right. And AR. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that he said in the 4chan post said 19 minutes, including the walk back and forth. So that Banfield body cam video starts at like 250 or 253 or 250, somewhere in there.
Right.
And it goes until like 3:20.
Right.
It's on for 23 minutes. I know that. And they say 19 minutes. And at 3:12, you see 4 people running across the Banfield heading to the Sigma Chi house. So to me, it started right after the last call to Jack D. I think they were hearing stuff downstairs. I think Xana and Ethan got it first, and they were frantically trying to call him, and he wasn't answering. And then on the last call, it went down, and 3:12, they're running back. And if you do the math, it's almost the exact time that Banfield video is running. And that is extremely ironic that those cops are there at the exact time that this happened. And then right after it's over, they left and went to the Infinity Apartments.
Yeah,
That's just too coincidental to me to not have something to do with it. So to me, the answer is both. And I think that drugs were definitely part of it. I think Ethan insulting Loach was a big part of this thing. I think Maddie insulting Loach. I think this was a culmination of many things, but I do think that the biggest issue was drug/money. And that's why I think Emma and Demetrius are somehow part of it. But that's my answer.
I follow everything that you're saying, and I have a lot of agreement to everything you're saying, but I even open up the spectrum more than just the frat house, Demetrius, Emma Bailey. Of course, we still project the 911 call and all of that into it with Dylan and Bethany and what could their involvement be. Quinn Kelly, what could his involvement be? There's so many players that
Right.
If someone literally asked me, take Brian Koberger completely out of the mix, and what does that leave my thought process at the end of the day of what the culprits could be of this crime? And I say the entire community.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say the entire community is not because I feel like everybody in the community went into the house and committed the crime. It's not because I feel as though each and every single one of them played a part within the crime.
Yes.
I feel as though even before the crime, the community knew there was issues and stayed silent. I believe right after the crime, the community knew there were issues and knew what those issues were and stayed silent.
Right.
And then I think now where my biggest problem is, there are people that know things. They're keeping their mouth shut because they're afraid to stir the pot in their very local college town community that's going to reflect badly upon so many in that, including law enforcement, including anybody that could be a part of the drug rings happening, not only locally, but from afar. This
Right.
is going to affect so many people that now the best way to protect not only your family and your community, but others in other communities is to stay silent. And what that is doing is keeping the 4 individuals from getting the true justice they deserve. But on top of that, now they have a man sitting in a jail cell that I'm not saying doesn't know, or he may be another person that's got a ton of information about what happened. You never know.
Right.
But I think that he's not the only one at worst case scenario. He's not the only one that should be sitting where he's currently sitting. There are issues within this case that a lot of people are ignoring. And that's why I say the entire community. And it's sad. It's sad that a community could do that. But
Yeah,
the
it's
super
evil.
chat with a question. Thank you so much, Modo, for your super chat. She wants to know, why would the university want possession of the house that was involved in a murder of its own students, though? A scam or to control the narrative? What do you guys think?
so that's a good question. I mean, how do you feel about that with what the university taking ownership of that 1122 King Road? I'm going to allow you to give your opinion on what you think of the actual university's point of view of that. And then I want to tie that up at the end with the actual owners of the house that gave it to the university.
crazy sketchy with those two. Yeah, I think the university wanted the house because they wanted it down. They were worried on parents' weekend, mom and dad thinking about sending, Betty Sue to college, drives by this house like, oh wow, that's that house where those 4 people were butchered. We're not going here. That's freaking me out. So that's kind of what I think is just they wanted the memory of it gone. They want this thing swept as far under the rug as they possibly can. I think that's why they came up with Brian so quickly and kind of just made him the fall guy. I don't think he was involved at all, honestly, but I'm willing to hear it, if there's evidence, but I haven't heard it yet. So yeah, I think they wanted to control the narrative. And yeah, thank you for that super sticker. That's super cool of you to do that. But that's my answer to that, AR.
I believe, when the owners of that home decided to gift that house, because nobody just gifts houses, nobody gifts properties.
Right.
That's all valuable. That's money, especially for individuals that are in the rental business. This is what they do. This is the company
Right.
they have. They make money by doing this. But I believe, and I know this is okay, here comes the April Fool's Day conspiracy theorist A.R. Hayes is going to jump into this. I think they backpedaled. I think those owners realized, one, there's a big problem with that white Hyundai Elantra found in Oregon in pieces as a getaway vehicle that matches the exact description of what the law enforcement gave as the vehicle they were looking for.
Right.
And then it all ties back. I mean,
Right.
I guess, people will say, no, it doesn't. I think it does. Through the research I've seen, it ties right back to not only 112 King, home, but to those very owners.
Right. Because the woman worked for one of them.
Right.
And she owned the car and she lived in Colorado.
I mean, just imagine the heat that these owners of that house are going to be under. You just have one of the worst violent crimes ever in the history of Idaho happen just outside of a college university, taking 4 young college lives, and your car, which just miraculously gets passed around through employees or whoever it might be, ends up wrecked 1 state over after the police have made a personal ploy to the community to find that very style and type of car.
Right.
Well, now we got to clear our name. We got to get out of this. So I'm going to give up the property. I'm going to get the protection of the university by this, because
and they got rid of all their other properties there in Moscow.
That's right.
All of them.
So
they're gone.
We're backpedaling up and out of this. And to me, I'm sorry, that smells like knowledge or involvement.
Right.
You either know something,
right,
or you had something happen that shows, and maybe that's why that house came down as quick as it did. Think about the ownership in that gifting paperwork through their lawyers, most likely had a disclaimer. We're going to give all of this to you, but you have to tear the house down within X time frame. And it probably needs to happen before this goes to trial.
Yeah.
Because we don't want anything coming back to us on this property. We want it out. That's called backpedaling. That's hidden. That's sketchy.
No, I hear you. And I think that Elantra that you're talking about, I think that's the one you see on that mobile gas station, that goofy still, that's like a picture of the monitor. It's a shitty quality, but I think that's the car, because that was 345. And that's the reason why law enforcement doesn't like to talk about that, because that doesn't jive with their time frame, because that's leaving Moscow, heading toward Pullman. Yeah. So at 345 jives with the time frame. I think this happened 3 to 3:30, or like 10 to 3 to about 3:20 maybe. That's when I think this happened. And that would make sense. And if they're trying to pin this on him, that's awfully convenient that's leaving town at about the same time. I think that makes sense. Maybe they filled up with gas, got some food, and hit the road because it's a long drive. And the excuse she gave of why she just abandoned the cars, I don't even remember what it was, but it was some ridiculous, nonsensical reason.
Law enforcement said occupants of a vehicle of this description. If they, had that calling card and they were already on to one individual, and that's why they were so solid in their feeling that it was safe and sound, they would not have used the word occupants. I mean, I get how in our discussions, many of us are known to switch a word or two around in what we're trying to say, but they already have everything they're going to say known and written and prepared for them. That word occupants was not a mistake. They were looking for occupants of that vehicle. And I believe you're right. I think it's the exact vehicle that ended up in Oregon.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what happened.
That's a great question, though.
It is a good question.
That, a lot, with the ownership of that and the house coming down prior to trial, this absolutely ensures, and I'm not sure people fully understand this, if this trial ends up in a hung jury, mistrial, or an acquittal, they have no backup plan to go arrest anybody else.
Yeah, they put all the eggs in this basket. I think it's going to blow up on them, honestly. I don't know. I mean, unless they're going to pull some kind of rabbit out of the hat, I really don't know what it is they got, other than maybe we've talked about the whole, co-defendant. If they've got somebody that claims, and I had somebody, you're talking about Brent Kopaka earlier. I had somebody in the comments say, well, how do we even know Brent Kopaka is dead? Well, and that's obviously a huge conspiracy theory. However, wouldn't that be crazy if he was really alive and he's the one that's going to say that he did it with Brian? That would be messed up.
I've seen it happen where they said somebody in a case I was involved in. I wasn't the major perp or the main guy they were trying to get, but I remember many of us were being brought in on charges, and the main witness turned out to be a guy they stated was a part of our group that got swatted, and he never died. He was alive the entire time, but he was hidden in the background until trial and came out and testified. Thankfully, not against me, but he testified against some of the major players in the case, and everybody was in shock because they did a funeral. They did a full-out service for the guy. They did everything you could imagine, except for release body cam footage and stuff of that nature. Next thing they knew, there he was. There he was.
Wow.
And we're in shock. Like,
right?
Really?
So that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, because, if you really think about it, have we seen, I know we've seen Kopaka's friend come out and speak, and that's great.
Right.
But that could all be staged. That could all very well be staged. Where's the family, the support of the community coming out speaking on that man's behalf, or even people coming out speaking in regards to the PTSD and the ailments he was going through to fight for better healthcare and stuff for that? Nobody's doing that. It's just shoveled underneath the dirt. And when they keep saying there's an informant out there that people are trying to talk to and the FBI is pushing them away, boy, wouldn't that make sense? You don't see him get shot. You don't see a body.
No.
You don't see anything.
I mean, people have said that about the Idaho 4 victims, and we've never seen any video of them being taken out of there in body bags, Well,
now
they could have done it if they built a tent around it and something like that.
I did have somebody reached out to me that was actually local from the area, and what they stated happened in regards to that is they blocked the entire area around the home up to like a block away, brought in ambulances late at night and removed the bodies. But I'm telling you, there would be footage of those ambulances driving out of the area. So I can't even really agree that that's the way that they removed the bodies out of the Idaho 4 home, because there would be video. There would have been cameras on that area at all times, especially if you do roadblocks like that. People are going to know what's going on.
Right.
We're not all idiots. We're not all idiots. I might be one, but we're not all idiots. You know, somebody would have caught it and they would have had photos, video, something.
Now, I seem to recall right after this happened, and I've been trying to find pictures of it, and I can't. I'm not the best web sleuth out there, but I haven't been able to find pictures of, I recall a heating and air conditioning company being there like the next day.
Yep.
Now, when I search for pictures of this, I see a disaster, like a, disaster restoration type place, but that's probably to clean up the blood and all that kind of stuff. They're not
they
going
actually got sent on their way.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Because they came in, they were supposedly ready to start cleaning, and they got sent on their way. But I do remember the air duct people that were supposedly coming in, and that's where everybody started discussing there was possible video cameras in the air ducts.
Right. That's what I was going to say, is that seems very suspicious of why are you taking all these air ducts out of this house? I mean, it just seemed weird. And right after this happened, and I wondered if that door being propped open was maybe for the smell that would be in that house. And I wondered if somehow or another this air ducting had something to do with the video surveillance, because I've done a video on that. I do think, these owners were incredibly sketchy. I wouldn't put it past them to have that place wired up for video. It's definitely something that I think is a distinct possibility.
And if we want to throw a monkey wrench into the entire thing, think about mainstream media pointing at Brian Koberger as the man that set up cameras in that young lady's apartment after she had been robbed, and asked him to come set that up. Could Brian Koberger's actual tie to this be that he was called over when the locks were having to be changed, Xanda's father, and they requested some sort of audio or video recording type system to be put into the home? And maybe, just maybe, and I know it's never really been talked about, could Brian Koberger have been someone that assisted in that?
I have something similar to that. I was talking about in the same episode I did on the video surveillance, that how do we know, again, I mean, we're just spitballing. We don't really know, we're just throwing out ideas, but along the lines of what you're saying is maybe he was hired by the owners to wire up the place to protect what was inside.
Right.
To me, if this house was a known house that, we've all heard about it repeatedly from a million different sources, was what was going on there. And I honestly think that the fact that 4 of the 6 of them, or 5 of the 6 of them, have extensive family histories of narcotics and trafficking and prison. I mean, this is, to me, it's almost too weird. We talked about this, I think, last time. It almost seems like a setup of them all being in this house, but that would also make sense that this place is wired up for sound and video. And I think you pointed this out repeatedly on videos I've seen. Hunter Johnson is like a permanent fixture in that place. And I think he was the liaison, but maybe I'm not using the right word, between the frat and that house. He's always there. And when those cops showed up in the back, when Kaylee came out and that Rosendahl took her picture of her license, that incident, he comes out of the house and he sits on that couch.
As if he belonged in that situation.
Right. Like normally, like you would be, as a kid, you see cops, you're like, I want to be anywhere but there. Right.
Yep.
But no, he comes right out, doesn't say a word, just sits there and listens, probably making sure. So I think he's there to protect the frat interest in what's going on in that house. He's just there way too damn much. He was there when the cops showed up, when nobody that, according to them, that lived there was there. He was there at the door.
Right.
He's constantly there. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems like he had to have some, and he's the first one they called. Why is he the first one they called? They don't call a boyfriend or something. They call him. So I think he's got a higher purpose there than just, hanging out and partying.
Definitely so many questions in this case for sure. And speaking of questions, I did have a couple that I saw popping up that I wanted y'all to answer.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Wolf Angel. Why did Kaylee get out of there only to turn that night to be unalived? What are your guys' thoughts?
So I'll kind of jump in here real quick and throw my 2 cents in, because I know you probably need a little break. You've done such a great job of explaining. And this is another oddity about this case, is you literally have a victim. Well, you got 2 victims that most likely should not have been known to have been at the house anyway, even though Ethan's dating a young lady in the house, so you could suspect that. But it's been stated Kaylee had left, even with an uncomfortable type feeling, to the point that she was sketchy about coming back. And the only reason why she did is because obviously she was invited back to be a +1. But I think even more so, she came back to see Maddie before her trip to Texas, where, here's my new car. I'm out of here. I'm sorry, I'm leaving. So this is another complete scenario where we all scratch our head and say, how do these weird, unique circumstances happen? How do they play out like this? You have a victim completely out of the situation that somehow gets called back into the situation.
Right.
And to me, the only way that's capable of being done is the plan was directly placed, and people are going to hate my view on this. The plan was directly placed through Dylan, because she's the only one that could have made that phone call, that request for that and one, to get somebody back in the house that very time. Nobody else made that call. Maddie didn't even make that call.
Right.
Dylan did. So where's the explanation of why, Dylan? Why did you need Kaylee to be your and one when you had Bethany right there? You had Maddie right there. You had Xana right there. You had Emma right there. You had Ashley Couch right there. You had all your buddies that you're living right there. But
and Ashlyn was at the house on Friday for that party they had there. So I don't understand why she was, what +1 party was she going to when there was a party at their own house on Friday? I don't know.
And why would you call the one person that wasn't at the house anymore?
Right.
The one person out of the house is the one that you called and requested.
Yeah, and her mom said she didn't want to go. Her mom said she didn't want to go.
Somebody come out and show me that Dylan and Kaylee were friends. Anybody, come out and show me.
Right.
Somebody show me another time they went out on a +1 to a movie or out to lunch. Anybody, show it. I'd love to see it, because I don't think it was. And that's why I feel that was an engagement, that was a setup.
Very interesting. SRB wants to know, is Brent's case investigation still open? Do either of you know?
I believe they closed, Brent.
Yeah, I believe it's closed. It's closed, but they're not giving up the 911 call. That interview that those cops did after that was over was like some Twilight Zone stuff going on there with that. There was some weird responses he gave. So I don't know who trains those police chiefs in those 2 towns on how to do a press conference, but they fail miserably because it makes it worse. They'd be better off saying we're not answering questions and slam the door than to get up there and make a mockery of the whole thing.
Pete, that's an absolutely excellent, and I was going to actually ask your opinion of that. I believe with the inexperience, it showed. It really, really showed. And I think their lack of actually just stepping to that podium and saying, we're not going to be answering any questions today. We're going to give you the little bit of feedback that we have, the knowledge that we have. We're going to share a piece of that with you, but we're not taking any questions.
Right.
That would have actually showed me more
Right.
that they were capable of investigating this case than them getting up there and making the statements and answering the questions the way they did. I think you're absolutely right. They made a mockery of themselves, but they also deflated people's confidence in that they are capable of even running this investigation.
Right. And even at the state level, which is frightening, is that Detective Tolleson, I mean, that guy is alleged to have done some really, really nasty stuff in that Donner's Ferry case with Dr. Moore and that murder of that other chiropractor, and how that guy's front and center from the Idaho State Police on the Idaho 4 case is beyond me. And then you throw him in there with a 2-year, in essence, rookie cop from the Moscow Police Department in Payne. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Those two, definitely some weirdness there, because Payne's dad owns or owned a butcher shop, some sort of meat processing plant in Donner's Ferry. So it's very likely that those two have had some kind of history. They know each other.
Yeah. I'm just baffled by all the coincidences that keep piling up that so many are willing to look the other way from and say they don't matter whatsoever. They do matter. And
Yeah.
every single one of them, when you start, it's like writing a book. Each chapter that you put together makes the other chapters make sense. The problem is, in this book of the Idaho 4, none of the chapters are following suit, so nothing makes sense. But when you look at all the coincidences, you start building a question in regards, was the investigation even handled properly? Was
Right.
it legitimately inexperienced? Or was it overlooking evidence in this case? Was it burying certain things like the Stickergate type situation? Where
Right.
you know you've got the body cam footage, you know you have it,
I
but
know.
you keep claiming you don't, and then
Right.
at the very end, when your butt's on the line, you find it.
Right.
Well, what are we going to have happen in this case? What are you going to find at the very last minute to save your butt? Because I know we're awaiting all of this stuff as evidence to come back, and it's not coming back the way they said it was going to, and nobody's questioning. Why is the evidence not coming back like you say it's going to?
Right.
You can only say gag order so many times or sealed and redacted before you start to question, do you really have it or not? Do you have
Right.
it or not? You know,
And the first two cops that showed up from Moscow are the two cops you were just talking about in Stickergate. Those are the two. That's why there's that Giglio, what's that called? That Brady Giglio?
Brady, yeah.
Because of that.
Yep. And the prosecution's got to battle that right off the beginning and say,
Right.
okay, we got a problem right off the jump.
Yeah.
We
I
better
mean,
get
are you
this out
kidding
there.
me? Are you absolutely
so-
kidding me that they couldn't have found anybody else to respond to that wasn't in some sort of mired in some sort of controversy or incredibly inexperienced. And I saw an interview with a detective that said when he was doing that job, if there was a homicide, he had to be on site, showered with a Tyvek on in an hour.
Yeah.
Why did it take Brett Payne 4 hours to get there? Was
Yeah.
he like at a family picnic and didn't want to, cut loose? I mean, that's the most absurd thing. I mean, 4 hours. So you
And
talk
to
about the
think that-
buttons, you talk about the DNA, and I don't know if we want to get into this tonight or what, but the DNA on metal. I just did an interview with an Australian police officer for a true crime deep cuts I'm working on. And he said, kind of echoed what we've talked about before about it doesn't last long on brass. He said DNA doesn't last long on any kind of slick surface like that. or, smooth surface. It's better with grooves where it can, get dug in. It's too easily, diminished and brushed off, and it's skin cells. But the fact that sheath, even if you go with their absurd timeline of 4 to 425, by the time he gets there, that's 12 hours it's been on there. And that's if it was left right when they left. So you've got a minimum of 12 hours. In that one study that's been done, they used fish DNA, not human DNA, but it was like 3 hours max, and that stuff's gone. So how are you telling me that's not planted evidence? I mean, it doesn't even make any logical sense that it would be there 12 hours later on brass.
Surprise, everybody. Guess who's here?
So now another big man with us.
Hey,
Oh, man. There goes the neighborhood. We got lucky here.
what are we talking about in here?
We're
Talking about
number
you.
4.
Yeah.
And since you just joined, you get to answer the next question. Everybody wants to know.
Welcome.
Informant, question mark. Anybody have an answer for that one?
Lucky, first of all, it's good to see you, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. You guys are talking about an informant.
Yeah,
Well,
had
now
somebody
we
ask
are.
about it.
Now we are.
This is my wife, by the way, Lucky. I'm sure you've seen her before, but she's directing the ship somehow.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Jane said I was the boss instead of
Yeah,
Doodlebug.
see how that goes, Lucky?
Hey, that's how it works. So what are we
Jump in
talking
there,
about?
my man. How do you feel about an informant within the Idaho 4? What's your gut feeling telling you, my man?
I think there's an informant. I think there's, in my opinion, there's definitely an informant.
Do you think directly involved, like very knowledgeable, or do you think it's an outsider that caught wind and maybe just sharing some of the things they've heard?
No, I think it's someone involved. I think it's someone who was either there or someone who was actually involved.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there was an informant because just the way that the whole investigation was set up. When you think about it, they really haven't even explained how they zeroed in on Brian Kohberger still.
Right.
That still hasn't been answered.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. How do you even file charges against somebody without being able to tell how you establish them as the suspect? I mean, it's like, to me, that's the most ridiculous thing that's not still known. Lucky,
Well,
that's
15
crazy.
months. It's been 15 months already
Right.
since Brian Kohberger was arrested, and the defense is still asking for clarification about what led law enforcement to him.
Right.
I personally, inside of me, coming from the background I do, which obviously I committed a lot of crimes. And so I had to go through the whole building of the case and how we were going to attack defending it. But you know what? Even in a scenario like this, people throw out gag order, redacted.
Right.
Leaks build cases to the point that make them more understandable. And the number one thing that I feel as though could have easily been leaked was just a simple connection. Just a simple connection.
On real quick.
How do you connect Brian Kohberger to the Idaho 4 case, and what did investigators find that triggered them to follow that? If that makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't you just leak what the connection and how you got Brian Kohberger mixed up with the 4 people? There has to be some. Has to be.
If you think about it, and actually I was putting together a video last night about this exact thing, because if you really think about the process of how they arrested Brian Kohberger, it's really strange. It's really strange that they didn't just pick him up in Pullman.
Right.
I mean, I looked it up, and the Moscow Police Department is only 16 minutes from where Brian Kohberger lives.
Right.
So it just seems weird that you would let him travel across the country and, with possible evidence and who knows what else. And then what I don't understand is people keep saying, well, there, law enforcement was hoping he would lead them to the weapon in Pennsylvania. And I'm thinking, how did the weapon get to Pennsylvania?
Right. You would think Idaho, there's all kinds of places you could have stashed a weapon. You wouldn't have to drive to Pennsylvania with it. I mean, that's
Well, and why would you take your dad along?
right.
If you were going to be dumping
Right.
evidence, it just
Hey,
seems
Dad,
odd.
don't throw that bag away on the back
Yeah.
seat. Just
Yeah.
leave that alone, Dad. I mean, that's
It's
Don't
crazy.
look at the shovel. Leave the shovel
Yeah.
alone, Dad.
right.
Yeah. I don't understand why they didn't just pick him up in Pullman when they discovered his car, because they discovered his car at the end of November.
Right.
So why did they follow him around for a full month? I just don't understand why they would follow him around for a full month if they didn't even know for sure that was his DNA on the knife sheath.
Right.
Do you feel as though they were surveilling him in Pullman the entire time? After they figured out the car situation, do you think they were actually tailing him and surveilling him?
I don't know. The two times that he was pulled over seems kind of strange to me. On the way to, you mean in Pullman, Washington?
Yeah, I mean just around the
Yeah.
area of the crime.
Yeah, I think they
You
were
do?
watching him. I think they were watching him since the end of November.
Hmm.
And that's
And
why
they couldn't have pulled him in and done anything. I mean, you know what I
it
mean?
just seems
I don't know.
strange. Why not just pull him in and question him?
Right.
Well,
It doesn't make sense. People say, well, they didn't want to, let him know that they were onto him. And I'm like, well, that's not usually how it works. If they're
Right.
onto somebody, they don't just usually follow you around for a month.
Right.
Right.
Personally, I think he was on the radar before this even happened. I hate to say this and be too conspiratorial, but I did a video on the Pullman PD. I mean, you want to talk about sketchy. I mean, they're just as bad as Moscow, even worse.
Right.
And I think personally, when he interviewed for them, which was the summer before this happened, he was a cloud-based forensics guy, and this is a department with so many underhanded. I mean, they've been charged. I mean, there's been people fired. I mean, this is like legit. And this is, I think that when he went in there and started talking about all these investigations he could do with the computer and this and that, I think they thought, you know what? I don't want this guy anywhere near our little skeletons in the closet. Get him the hell out of here. And I think maybe in the interview it came up that he likes to drive around at night because he doesn't sleep well. And maybe that he lives by himself. And he checks all the boxes and he's not from there. And to me, when the University of Idaho is throwing their temper tantrum in these 2-a-day meetings they sat in with the police as this investigation was starting, and they needed to come up with somebody. I mean, these two, Pullman and Moscow, were hand in glove.
Oh,
I think that's how he got involved in it. I hate to be like that. I've said this so many times. I'm tired of saying it, but I'm not anti-police. But my gosh, I mean, this entire place, I mean, I've said this in videos here recently, is like a cross between the Twilight Zone, Children of the Corn, and the Sopranos.
Yeah.
That's what this place is like. This is insane. Absolutely insane.
For a place that has no crime, there's a lot going on in Moscow, Idaho.
Right.
For a place that has no crime, I mean, they're like
Right.
a very safe place. But
oh yeah,
it doesn't sound that safe.
No, people drowning in 2 inches of water.
Right.
Yeah, I was going
just
to
an
say, if you
accident.
deem everything an accident, then you don't have a lot of crime.
Exactly. I don't know why OSHA. I don't know why OSHA's not out there, for Christ's sake. If they get so many accidents, I would think that would be like a legitimate, like a safety audit. You guys have all these accidents,
It's crazy. But if you think about it, what are the chances that this suspect is earning a PhD in criminology? And it just seems odd because, I've heard people say, well, he studied criminology, so he would know how to commit these crimes. And I don't think they understand that criminology, It's not teaching you how to commit crimes. You know, it's like statistics and research and data collection and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you want someone to teach you how to commit a crime, I'll show you how to not do it.
It's knowledge you can't get in college, right? You know,
that's right.
You just can't.
You watch that guy's channel too?
Who's that?
It's one of those prison is in another ex-con that does a channel, but he always says that that's not knowledge you'll get in college.
Okay.
He's great.
Probably. Yeah.
He's a Hispanic dude. I love his channel.
It's Pablo Pete or something like that. He's
that
got
sounds
a huge
right.
following. It's a great channel.
It is.
And he's comical with it.
Right.
He's very comical and he delivers it so well. Big fan of his. I really am. But you know when I knew there was actually going to be a problem is when I saw the post on Facebook, and I think it came from 4chan or one of those places, that said, I'm hiding out in the Poconos. And it's, you know, criminals, we're pretty dumb 98% of the time. We're pretty good at giving our own selves up, even when we're trying not to. We leave little breadcrumbs that come straight to us. But I'm not in the belief that a quadruple homicide person that's committed his crime in Idaho is going to tell you he's hiding in the mountains in Pennsylvania. To me, what that is, there's your informant. There is your informant. That very person that made that comment just gave up Brian Kohlberger, or maybe didn't even give him up, but gave up to the public like us, where you're going to find the person they're going to arrest.
And where was that comment? Where was that comment? Did you say, AR?
I believe it was 4chan. It was one of the
4chan.
It was all over at the very beginning right before they arrested Brian Kohlberger. It was everywhere on Facebook and everywhere. And I remember stopping right there because I had a Facebook group and I was heavy discussion with a lot of people because everybody thought Papa Rogers. Well, that's Brian Kohlberger. You know, they didn't know Brian Kohlberger, but they definitely thought that was the man who was involved. Then it was all this swirling stuff. And it just hit me. The kid is, when they arrested Brian Kohlberger, and I looked at it, and I could just tell that kid's not going to tell on himself.
Right.
That kid is not going to tell you where to find him. He's not going to do it. But then again, he wasn't hiding in. Yeah. He wasn't hiding. For any reason, Brian Kohlberger was never in hiding.
No, he's the only one that stayed in town. He's the only one that stayed in town. The entire population scattered to the winds, left the country and all other shenanigans, and this dude's just hanging out, doing his thing, you know.
Going to school, driving around in that car.
Right. Going grocery shopping the next day. And
that's what I didn't understand is they had already found the car at his apartment. And it just seemed as that why not pull the DNA off of that?
Right.
You know,
or his apartment
DNA out of his garbage at
home. Or is it a door handle? I mean, there's a bunch of ways they could have gone.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I still can't get over because I've been around the block once or twice. They have a 72-hour detain or hold that they can bring anybody that they want in and talk to you, investigate you, put you in a cell. If you say, I don't want to talk to you, I want a lawyer, they say, okay, sit your butt in that cell for the next 3 days.
Right.
We're doing our investigation. We're going to pull in witnesses. We're going to talk to people. You know they could do that up to 10 times. They have 10 times they're allowed to do that. Wow. So you figure 3 days times 10 times, that's 30 days they get to talk to you. Now, they can't do them all back to back to back. They got to spread it out a little bit. But hell, I would do that before I'd let my suspect drive all the way to Pennsylvania.
Right.
Come on in here for 3 days. We need to chat real quick. Come here.
Right. Well, what was in Pennsylvania for them? You know, that's why did they follow him all the way to Pennsylvania? He had been at, you know, the Washington State University campus from the times that the crimes occurred until they followed him. Mm-hmm. So what would have really been in Pennsylvania for them, you know, to follow him all that way?
They were looking for a shower curtain. They needed his shower curtain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still don't get the whole Pennsylvania thing. It just doesn't even make any sense. But I've heard the DA over there is got all sorts of shadiness going on with him. So I can't remember what exactly it was, but I remember watching something and going, "My gosh, like I can't even I can't even deal with the Idaho stuff, let alone going to Pennsylvania." But there's
Right.
some, because he was the guy that said he was going through the trash with his gloves and all this stuff. There's been no evidence of that. That's
No.
just what he said he was doing. So we don't really even know if he was doing any of that stuff.
I mean, I hate to say this because here comes the tinfoil hat again, guys. The conspiracy's coming out, but I feel as though they were trying to let Koberger go back to Pennsylvania so they could tie him to the Pennsylvania murders that happened. Because they pulled a grand jury right after that, brought his parents in. I think they were trying to tie all that shit together with the Idaho. That's where you build the serial killer narrative right then and there if they can prove that, and it all fell apart on them. It all fell apart.
I feel like this whole thing is falling apart. I feel like it just seems so odd. Like I feel there's a reason why they had, the state police in Pennsylvania pick him up. I don't know what that reason would be, but I feel like there's a reason they let him go. If any of us were a suspect in this crime, they would have not let us drive 2,500 miles across country.
Right.
We would have gotten picked up and questioned right there.
I'm telling you, if I was a suspect, if they even just thought my name was at all involved, and I know, look, I get it, because people would say your backgrounds are totally different. My background compared to a PhD student, blah, 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 and my tattoos make me stand out. Right. But look, you have to set all that aside. I know my luck through life, when I was even breaking into the idea of committing crimes, they didn't hesitate to come pick my butt up.
No.
If they thought I was involved, they came and got me.
Yeah.
And then they tried to turn me,
Yeah, that's how it goes. I mean, that's in what situation do they, are they looking all over for your car and then they find your car and then they just follow you around for a month?
Right.
I never understood that. And that's one of the big reasons it would have had to be, if there is an informant, I feel like it has to be somebody with some pretty strong evidence, because they've hung their hat on, on this information. They basically, it's just such an odd way that they went about investigating this case. It's just, it's strange.
I almost feel if it's somebody like you feel lucky that was there or had interaction, that's a witness. That's not an informant.
Right.
Because
I could possibly be a co-defendant.
What they saw, what they know, that's somebody that's going to be cross-examined. So I understand you got to protect that, but witnesses are very well protected. They really are.
Yeah.
And informants not going to testify. So they don't so much hide the informant, they just remove the informant from the situation by never releasing a name or the info that they got. This one is odd because it's being leaked that they have an informant. And that's why I go back, you kind of missed the beginning where, we were talking about if we remove Brian Koberger from the situation, who else could be, a part of this whole thing? And I said the entirety of the community, because of the fact of the silence and the hiding and the ability to just allow the cover up to transpire, no matter who committed this crime, they're allowing this to stay quiet.
Right.
And I believe there's people, and that's why they had to make that statement. If any of this is unsealed, the person that this is deemed to be a part of is at risk.
Right.
Whether it be law enforcement, whoever it might be, they're at risk. Which tells me people know who that person is. They already know who it is.
I think this community knows. That's what's so strange to me, is that nobody in this community is talking. How do you get that many people?
It is
not to
weird.
say anything. How do you get that many people?
They're scared to death. That's why.
usually that's the case. You know,
They
usually
saw
it's
what
that clear.
happened to those four and they didn't want any part of that. I mean, that's the only thing that makes any sense. I mean, how do you not have somebody? I mean, that town, was there 20,000 people there? There's
Yeah.
not one person that's going to go to, CBS News and say, I can't sleep at night over this. This is horrible. I'm going to tell you what happened.
Right.
I can't believe it.
Or nobody's posted anything. That's what surprises me. Even any, just anything on, any platform. Nobody's posted anything at all.
You
And
know
it
how
just
much?
seems strange.
Think of the money somebody could garner for an interview about anything about this case, anything about the community, anything about Brian Kohlberger, anything about Madison, anybody a part of this case, especially Dylan or Bethany. If you got some inside information on Dylan or Bethany and you're willing to come to the table, you're getting paid.
Or Dylan and Bethany getting paid. I mean, they were in the house.
Right.
So,
But, when they have come forward, WSU mom Kim, she's a good example. She was treated like crap by some of these creators that interviewed her, I mean, so that's the downside of it, is when you do try to come out and speak, and there's not been much of it, but she would be the one example I could think of. I mean, you'd have to be getting paid a lot of money to be able to put up with that kind of crap,
I don't know if you can hear the sirens behind me. I gotta go, guys. I think they got me.
I
brought Lucky on the show and I'm going down.
Oh shit. That'd be wild, man.
On a live.
Right.
Well,
Lucky, how do we roll out of this when they are getting cuffed up there?
Well, just make sure you get paid for whatever info you give up so you can come bail me out.
You just get super stickers to take care of your bail. That would be.
There you go. Everybody donate, please.
That's
please.
it.
No, but and that's the thing. That's one reason why I think this is a great combination of minds that have come together here. I'm very appreciative of both of you, by the way. We think outside of the box, and I think that's very key. When you look at a case like this, you can bring in all the different angles that are truly important. None of us have come out and flat said, there's no possible way this didn't happen or this did happen.
Right.
But we see the issues. Like, this doesn't make sense. And anybody that will flow with it and say it all makes sense, you're full of whatever.
There's no way. There's just no way. And I think that it doesn't make sense for a reason. I think it doesn't make sense because they're hiding a lot of stuff. So we're only getting pieces and parts of this story. So I think that's why it doesn't make sense.
Think of any other case in your lives that you followed or seen or researched that literally one has all the weird coincidences that this one has, of so many people surrounding the house that have drug backgrounds and, different histories. And then you've got white Elantras being found in Oregon tied back to the very house, and cops making misinformed statements at the podium just to retract them back and then to go back into it again. The coincidences are just retardedly stupid. But then to watch the development of a case as we get into an arrest and working through the court hearings, and I know not every one of them is broadcast on national TV court. I get it. But this is here we are, we're still sitting at this very point, and major evidence is not even back yet. The cast report's not even back yet. But they're bickering and arguing over an alibi.
Right.
You are throwing a fit over an alibi, and you don't even have your major evidence back.
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
to
the
me.
3 unknown male DNAs that said they're waiting for results. Are you kidding me? They got results overnight when they dug through his trash and got his dad's, DNA. They happened to just shit results overnight, but yet this 15 months later, still waiting on it. I mean, are you kidding me? I've never seen.
You have an eyewitness that couldn't dial 911 for 8 hours. An eyewitness to the perp walking out of the house
Right.
that could not pick up her phone for
Right.
8 hours.
Right.
Come on.
But she could call
Really?
friends. You know, that's the thing.
Really?
And I think it's strange too that I think it's coming from both sides, because I really think the prosecution is waiting for the alibi. And I think the defense is waiting for the information.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, you know, I feel like the prosecution is saying, we don't want to release this information because then they're going to form their alibi around our information.
Right.
You know, and I think the defense is saying, we don't want to give our alibi till we know their information, because it's always nice when you see them coming. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, look at the shadiness of the prosecution, though, going into a discussion with the defense regarding the jury pool and the surveying of a jury. Look, guys, that happens. I've been through trials.
Right.
That is common. Defense attorneys do send out questionnaires and surveys. It happens all the time.
Right.
It's not new.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, behind their backs, the prosecutor goes in and files a motion, and it gets hammered in immediately without any type of conversation. No defense logic to battle that. It just goes into effect. Well,
Right.
Doesn't that remind you of the preliminary hearing just going out the window and bam, we got a grand jury indictment? And
Right.
just everything is prosecution hitting you from behind.
Right.
Lucky if you and I got into a fist fight, the best way for me to win is to come from behind you and sucker punch you.
Right.
You would never see it coming. Even if you felt me there, I could still sucker punch you.
Right.
And that's what the prosecution, in my mind, is doing. They're sucker punching this entire case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
and
they have all the information. The prosecution has all the information already.
Right.
Right.
So,
And how it's not required that I know that they want to play the stupid games, but how it is not required, because the taxpayers are the ones taking this one on the chin,
right.
that they present the evidence that they've got to the defense in an organized way, so that when they get it, they're not spending 6 months trying to match audio with video. I mean, I never heard of anything so friggin' ridiculous
I've never
in my
heard of
whole
that.
life.
Well,
I mean,
and
this is on the
why not?
taxpayer's dole here. Do us a solid and just give them the stuff organized. Then we wouldn't be here till next summer doing this.
Well,
honestly.
the fact that they want to play games, that's what makes me believe that they have a flimsy case.
Right.
They just, I mean, why not just come out and show them the information? Here's where he's guilty.
Right.
Why not just do that?
Yeah.
I mean, why string this along? We're 15 months in and we're no further than we were when he was arrested.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jed's trying to get a question in for us.
Oh, yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Let's do
Well,
it.
I was just going to say, several people are asking if what you guys think about Ian Harsh. Could he be some sort of an informant? Sorry, I can't talk today. What are your thoughts on
I'll
that?
let you guys go first. I've got an astounding no, I don't believe so. And it's just very simple said. He's been all over from the very beginning in public view. And I think if he was an informant, they would have shut him down immediately.
Yeah,
That's
he
just my
inserted
feeling.
himself into this case. So I don't think he would have done that if he was an informant. And I think it's also important for people to understand that not everybody that was around this area is involved in this crime.
Right.
Right.
There are people that live around this area, that weren't involved in this crime at all. And I think that because Ian Harsh, inserted himself into
Right.
the investigation, I think that's the only reason he got any airplay at all.
Yeah. Plus, he's got a criminal background.
He's
But
an odd character.
he is
He's an
odd. He came off to me as more goofy than anything, but he did say he saw a black SUV in that parking lot, or a black truck. I can't remember
Yeah,
what he
but-
said.
Let me,
So-
and I hate to throw it this way. What was he high before he saw it or after he saw it? I mean, when did he spark it up and do his thing?
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know.
There's many a times where I think I saw something too, but I've had one too many glasses of wine before I saw. I mean,
Sure.
come on. But just
yeah.
even the storytelling that man has. To me, we watch out for those types of people when we're locked up, because those are your snitches. Those are
Right.
the ones that give up everything And they don't need to. They're not even involved. They could have just stayed quiet. So I don't know.
And when I watched that interview, the way he describes it, it's almost as though he's describing Kaylee's new car.
Seems like it.
So I'm curious if he saw that new car, because it just had a drive out sticker on it. So I'm curious if he saw Kaylee's new car and didn't realize that she had gotten a new car, because he would have never seen that car before.
True.
Right. Yeah, and
I don't know if Kaylee's old car was also there, because I think they were saying that she drove a Ford Escape, and so I don't know.
Didn't she sell her used vehicle to help put the money down on the new vehicle? I thought I thought I had because I had a couple of people close to the family in my Idaho Facebook group early. And of course, I pissed them off with all my theories and everything I was saying. But at first, they were very communicative. And it did seem as though that was one thing they had, is they had a platform on social media where they sold items.
Okay.
Some furniture pieces, clothing pieces. I remember a car being sold by one of them for like $2,500 or $3,000. So, I mean, I give it a little bit of credence that that's part of the down payment towards the new vehicle. I could understand it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it also makes sense exactly what you said. The black SUV could be hers. He comes driving around, sees it sitting in front of the house. Could Kaylee have gone out to just start her car to show Maddie the new car? And let me show you what it sounds like. Let me show you the radio. And now you're seeing a black SUV in front of the home that's not normally there. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, when I was listening to him, he basically said something about like a luxury SUV. You know, he basically said it was something really, really fancy.
Right.
And so automatically I was thinking, well, maybe it was Kaylee's Range Rover, and he had just never seen that vehicle parked in front of the house.
Yeah,
well,
that's
shit,
possible.
You got to that thought quicker than I did. I was thinking of Suburban, an Escalade, a Lincoln Navigator. I'm thinking of luxury. You know, I guess Range Rovers are nice vehicles too. I know you come from kind of the backwoods fishing. I had a Land Rover. I mean, I know what they're about. I don't find them to be luxurious. I find them to be a money pit. But
I had a Range Rover. I'd never own another one ever in my life.
Yeah. No, definitely out of the realm of buying new parts for those. Let me tell you now. So, but great thinking. Like I hadn't really projected about that. That's great.
It's a good question. Good question.
Yeah.
We have a super sticker asking a question from Moto again. If video and audio had to be pieced together from its original form, isn't that manipulation of evidence itself?
That's a great question, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the audio would be together, so with the video. So, I mean, in my editing software, I could separate the two.
Yeah.
And if I sent them to you as different files, you know, you'd have to try to.
Would the audio even matter? I mean, it mattered on the, you know, when they were walking to the grub truck, but would the audio even matter of the vehicle driving around? I guess
I don't know.
People were talking outside, but
I don't know if they were like police interviews, any police interviews. I know they said they didn't record one with Brian, but I mean, did they have any of the other ones? Dylan and Bethany, any of that stuff?
What about the audio on the neighbor's house? They caught the thud and the dog barking, and now they're trying to align that audio with a totally different video version of the car to try to capture what could have possibly been going on. But I still find that to be, boy, that's really hard to do, because if your audio or video is off by a split second, that changes a lot of things because they're not adding up perfectly. So I know that you can just round about it and say, well, under the approximate time frame of 401-11 seconds, but we're talking about
that camera though at the corner, the 1112 King, that camera that we only have seen a still at 156 when supposedly the girls were dropped off. But that camera it shows where King and Queen intersect.
Right.
And so anybody coming into Queen, that's the only way in and out, because it's a one way or a cul-de-sac. So that video, and that's a pretty good video too, quality wise.
It is good quality. It's a good quality video camera.
If they've got video from that camera, which they do because that's how Kaylee's sister got it, then that would show, if they're claiming he was there and in his car, that would show him coming in. It would show him going out times. I mean,
now you guys are smarter than me about this. Is that camera where we get that still photo? Are they able to zoom in enough to see somebody in the windshield of a vehicle, or would there actually be a light reflection off that windshield that could obscure that? I'm only asking you guys this because I have no knowledge of this. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I've only been busted by video.
You could zoom in on video. I mean, if there were street lights hitting the windshield, maybe you could get a glare, but I don't know. I mean, that's a really good quality video. I think it's certainly going to look better than that crap picture they got at the mobile gas station leaving town.
Well,
so
and I think that
we could have seen him.
that camera was one of those ones you screw into the light bulb.
It is.
That was what that security camera was.
Right.
So, I mean you're right. It was really clear.
Right.
From that camera. So I think that would have been obvious. I mean, he would have had to go through there unless he parked behind the house, like they said. But I don't know. I think it's just such a common. I think that the whole video camera stuff, I just don't. I don't go for it. I just don't. I don't feel like they pieced this together. Why does it look like he drove so far out of his way?
So stupid.
I just don't believe that. And I don't believe that video was quality enough for them to say, this is our guy. Let's follow him across country.
Right. I think it was somebody driving a white Elantra. There's plenty of them around. Molly Gray had one. There's all sorts of people that drove white.
In the area were driving a white colored, Ford.
I think it's somebody that made sure they were on as many cameras as possible. And then that's the one that wrecked in Eugene, Oregon. That's my official prediction on the Elantra they claim they see was done on purpose as part. And I don't like to be black tinfoil hat, black helicopter, but I do think that that's how they set him up, was to make it look like he was the one on the camera.
Well, and there's video manipulation. And so, a story that a case that happened, that where I live, it was a law enforcement had taken the life of a girl who was committing a very misdemeanor crime, and she was running from law enforcement, and they took her life. Well, the officer said that she had a weapon in her hand, and when they went back to the video, there was a weapon in her hand. Well, it came out a couple of months later when another video surfaced that there was another video very similar to that video, and there was no weapon in her hand. So they ended up catching law enforcement using a computer software program that they're not supposed to be using. And they had actually put a weapon in her hand to cover for this law enforcement officer. So to me, video footage is especially nowadays, I just don't feel like it's as solid as it could be with the way that you can manipulate it.
Yeah, Tolleson.
If I could edit it, they can edit it.
Right. Well, the guy I was talking about, Detective Tolleson from the Idaho State Police, that's what they claim he did in that Bonner's Ferry crime with Dr. Moore, was he changed the timestamp on the video to make it look like Dr. Moore was in the area when he wasn't. And that's how they wound up trying to get him. Thankfully, this got tossed out, and now there's a big lawsuit again from Dr. Moore involving this Tolleson. And that's why I can't believe they put him on the Idaho 4 case with all that going on in his background. So he's got experience manipulating video. So I wouldn't put it past them, really. I wouldn't. That's a good point, Lucky.
When you can manipulate video, I mean, there's a lot you can do if you can manipulate video, especially if that's all you have.
Right.
Think about this too, guys. And it's just kind of a point of view that I have as a guy that was a criminal. And anytime I did something dishonest or I committed a crime, I got charged with it, right?
Right.
Shouldn't law enforcement, if it's been deemed that they've manufactured evidence, changed evidence, manipulated the direction of an investigation, shouldn't that be criminal?
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Why are they not being held accountable for manipulation, corruption, like I always was? If I went out and I took your debit card and I manipulated your financial being by taking money electronically from your credit card,
right?
All I've done is really what these people are being accused of doing via video or audio or whatever they're manipulating to change the outcome that affects somebody's life. That truly affects somebody's life.
Yeah.
So if I do that, financial, I go do 5 to 7 years in the penitentiary. But these officers are just repositioned to investigate a whole nother crime.
Right.
Right. Well,
no, you're right. They should be held civilly and criminally responsible. And if that were to happen, wouldn't this be awesome? They changed Moscow to Coburger, Idaho. Okay. And I'm going to write, Brian's going to seek me out to write his book. And I'm going to write this bestseller.
It's going to be a bestseller.
And we're going to call it Coburger, Idaho.
There you
go. All of those fools over there at the PDAR will be in the Latah County Jail.
They need to you go ahead and write the book. They need to bring me in as the lead investigator for Moscow. We can call it a convict's way of solving crime.
And somebody is lucky or maybe a little unlucky.
You know, we'll introduce Lucky as a special person to come in and help me investigate.
Well, think about this, you guys. Well, I don't know. Think about this. All of the evidence and the video stuff that they have and the still, photos and all that stuff. This is all stuff that Brian Coburger would have known about. This is what criminology is about, is collecting this type of data.
Right.
So I just don't understand how he's going to learn. He's working on his PhD in criminology, but yet he's making all these mistakes. And it seems as though he would be aware that there were surveillance cameras all over, including
especially with a cloud-based forensics knowledge. Phones, he would know not to have his phone on him.
Right.
He would know he's going to be on every damn doorbell cam that's out there.
Yeah.
He knows about phone pings. Yeah, exactly.
That's why I don't understand.
It's so absurd.
It is absurd because that is what he does. So as he's driving around this neighborhood over and over and over, it seems as, because most people that are stalking a house probably aren't thinking about that type of information. But him, working on his PhD in criminology, it seems like that's something he would definitely be thinking about.
I just have this feeling with Brian Coburger, man. He picks everything apart to the finest of details. I don't know why I feel that. Maybe it's because that's the way I am.
Right.
Like in the group of people that I was with, when we would plan, they would always look at me and say, "You're the one that finds the smallest of freaking details that none of us are going to pay attention to. But you're going to pinpoint that. So we're going to let you just work that part." So I would almost reference that would be Brian Koberger's part. If he was involved in a crime like this, he would know camera, audio. Don't take a cell phone. That would be his part of the crime, where he would be on every pinpoint, knowing exactly what to look for. Now, the handling of the knife, probably not. The in and out of a home, probably not. All of those details would not be his strong suits. But I'll tell you what, he would know where the hell the cameras were. He would know why to not take a phone. He would have studied the cell phone's going to ping. They're going to have a cast report. My car's going to have a data box with movements and speeds. They're
Right.
going to be able to put this stuff together all based off of the cameras. And we know every light nowadays, it's got a red or a green light that you drive through has a camera.
And
Right.
law
That's how
enforcement
they
uses
issue
those
your
cameras.
ticket.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
He would have known
Yeah.
about the street cams for sure, in my opinion, because law enforcement uses those cameras.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like he would have known about it. Just feels like this is something he should have known about.
Right.
You know, and it's odd that he didn't consider any of this stuff. And not to mention, I think didn't Steve G say that his phone touched their Wi-Fi?
That's what, I remember that whole conversation he had, that it actually hit their Wi-Fi. And I remember blowing up about that, how that would never be possible without the password. It's not possible. And I've even reached out to people that said, even when you go to a place and you do the auto connect, it doesn't always auto connect because the password could be changed. Things change.
Well, and how far would you have had to be from that house? He would have had to be pretty close to that house. And I think he would have definitely known not to take his phone that close, to a house where he's getting ready to go inside and commit a quadruple homicide.
Right.
Well, his phone was off, so why would it have hit the Wi-Fi anyway?
I don't remember when because he was there 12 times.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But without 3 cell phone, as I understand it, without 3 towers at a minimum, you can't triangulate. So the best they can do is say he was in Moscow, and I don't know what good that's going to do when most of the people from Pullman came to Moscow to shop and eat anyway.
Right.
Well,
so I don't understand.
He frequents Albertsons.
I drive between 2 cities.
Me too.
And I never think about it. I never even consider the fact that I'm driving to another city.
Right.
That's just my route. So if I'm going shopping or going to eat somewhere in this other city,
right,
I never even think that I'm crossing over into another city because that's just where I go.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's pretty much useless to say he was in Moscow. And then I heard if the tower is busy closer to him, then it would bump him to Moscow. So he could have even been in his apartment in Pullman. And doesn't the PCA say that one of those pings was from when he was not even in the town? And I'm thinking, why would you put that in here? Doesn't that basically throw all this out as complete nonsense when you say one of them was when he wasn't even in the town? That just makes no sense.
And I've done videos on that. I think we've all spoken about that. You discredited your own evidence by putting that one phone ping is faulty into your PCA.
Right.
Now we can look at every single ping and say, is that one faulty too, or is it not? I mean, how
a lawyer would just shred that on the stand.
Yeah.
Well, think of their timeline. Their timeline's a mess. Their timeline doesn't even coincide.
Their timeline's going to do them in because it's not going to jive.
Well, even just talking about the phone pings, I don't know if y'all have ever been in small towns before. A lot of times you drive to bigger towns and to grocery shop because maybe your little town doesn't have what you need there. So it's not uncommon for those towns being close together to go from one to the other just to get something that you may need that town has that yours doesn't because it's a small town.
I live in a town of like 3,000 people. So there's a lot of stuff I don't have in my town.
Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon to travel between 2 cities, during the course of a day.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like I said, it only takes me maybe 12 minutes to get to that other city. So I don't ever even think about it because I can drive further in my own city, so it doesn't, I think they were so close together that it seems strange that he would be around this house. Now, if he did touch that Wi-Fi, then that's a whole, that's something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
But we still don't have any, we don't have any
information
about that.
If they prove that somehow he connected to their Wi-Fi, first of all, that's the connection that's necessary between the victims and Brian Coburn, because now it's going to be a very detailed situation of how often he was in that home. How often was he on their Wi-Fi? Who was he there to? I mean, that opens a whole nother door. I mean, that's a whole widespread. But we're not even to the cast report or any of that being back yet. So, I mean, people need to slow down and really come on now, you know.
Well, how
And
many
I had someone tell me the reason why they kept Kaylee's phone is because he actually attached to her hotspot. I mean, come on, people. Really?
I've heard that he was listening to the house through their Google Dot or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
wow.
many crazy theories
Yeah,
out there.
I
too.
mean, and I get
Yeah,
it. I
lots of
get
it.
people. This is so important to solve this case to get the justice for these kids. I get that. I 100% understand. I agree.
Absolutely want justice for them.
But we have to go the proper steps, and it has to really add up to one person that's going to be capitally held in a quadruple homicide that's going to lose his life in all of this as well. So another family is going to lose his son on top of the 4 families that lost their children. I mean, this is just getting worse and worse by the minute. And I
then
don't
you
want
have-
to question.
Well,
You
and
know?
then let's say, you know, they do decide to go ahead and you know, and convict Brian Koberger, and he's maybe not the person who did this. Well, now you've got the real people out there who did do this.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, is that this is a dangerous individual that's out in their community.
Right. And a man sitting in a jail cell that was in the middle of a PhD program trying to get his life turned around.
With no history
And-
of violence.
Yeah, he stole his sister's cell phone. Don't forget about that. That was
Right.
You know, and you got you,
I mean, come
you
on.
got to legitimately question that too, because, like I've said, the leaks are very important in cases. It's very important to see leaks come out and where they lead.
Right.
We've had very little leaks, even about Brian Koberger, other than he didn't want to use the same pots and pans that cooked meat in them before at his aunt's house, or
Right.
one girl at the very beginning that came out and said she drove him around not knowing he was out to score heroin, but she drove him. It's bullshit. You would know your buddy was going to get heroin. Don't lie. That's why
Yeah.
you disappeared. You're
Right.
off the map because you lied. Get out of here. No big
Right.
deal. Or, hey, you've got great birthing hips. Come on. Okay.
Yeah,
You
maybe
got
he
paid.
wasn't, you know, maybe he
You know,
wasn't the,
get
quite
out
the
of here. I've
ladies'
seen
man.
many girls that got great birthing hips. Get out of here. You know, whatever.
Hey, you know, that
None of
that
those
might have
things
worked.
are-
That might have worked on
Might
him.
have worked.
You never know. You
But
never
those
know.
aren't even relatively important to building
So
a
dumb.
reasoning to why this kid would do this.
Well,
Nothing has legitimately been leaked. And I've discussed the fact of the emotional writings the kid did where he lost touch, maybe didn't love his dad as much, whatever that might. His dad flew out. They were driving back together in the car. They actually cared about each other. So don't
Right.
tell me that all of a sudden he doesn't care about his dad. They're driving home together for the holidays. Get the hell out of here. You know?
Well, and
Right.
the age gap is something that I've always kept in mind. He was 28 years old. 28-year-olds aren't hanging out with, you know, I mean, it would be odd that he would be hanging out with 20-year-olds and
Right.
21-year-olds. You know, I mean, it doesn't sound like a big age gap when you get to my age, but when you're 20,
Yeah, that's a
an
big
8-year
difference.
age gap is a lot. So it doesn't seem as though Brian Koberger would be hanging out with this crowd.
Especially
really
as
seem like much of a
intelligent
party.
as he was. I would think
Right.
he would have a hard time with the party, girl type mentality thing going on.
Wasn't he just legitimately trying to get his PhD? I mean, I really feel like he doesn't have time for all this crap. you
Right.
know?
He's pretty
Right.
I mean,
busy.
it's one thing to say, and everybody excuse me for saying this, we go out to get laid for about 45 minutes on a Friday night.
Right.
Okay, I can see it. But I'm so enthralled with this young lady that now I'm devastated that she won't go on a second date with me. So I go take 4 people's lives. Come
Right.
on.
Well, and I've talked to a few people that know Brian Koberger, and I've asked them straight away. That was one of the questions I asked is, about his social life. And nobody ever said he was a party animal or that he was
Right.
all about the party, because
Right.
I don't believe that's the case. I don't,
No.
I mean, I think he had a narcotics problem 8 years earlier. But I feel they said it was H, obviously, but you don't meet very many productive H addicts. You
Right.
just don't. They're not working on PhDs, and they're definitely not applying
Teaching.
to work for law enforcement.
Right. That's
It just-
true.
Well, let me
too.
tell you,
It doesn't happen.
H is the number one used narcotic in the penitentiaries. It's number
Right.
one. It's the easiest to get in. It's the easiest to use. There's many ways of using it. But the whole thing, just what you said, the actual productive H users, very rare. There's
Very
a few
rare.
that can.
There are a few.
Very rare. Let me tell you, I loved it when I had people on my run or in my cell that were an H user because they passed the F out and they slept all day.
Right.
The only time I ever saw them is when they had to get up, go to the bathroom, and they went, they laid back down, went to sleep. And
Right.
it was like, you have to keep life real. So I would legitimately buy a little more to push their way so that they could sleep for the next 3 or 4 days. It's like, if you're going to be at my cell, it's my rules. Here, go to sleep. They were not
people
up.
say, law enforcement, they said they found a green leafy substance. So people automatically were like, oh, they found a green leafy substance. And I'm like, let's not compare the green leafy substance to the H, because they're two totally different users. I mean, they might use the same, you might have
and
an
it's
H
legal in Washington. It was legal. So, I mean,
I think it's legal in, I think it's legal in like a third of the states now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like drinking a beer to me.
Right.
I think it's ridiculous.
Right. But I just
What's
don't, I don't
crazy
feel
is
like
here-
you can compare the two.
Here in
Right.
Vegas, it's not legal unless you go into one of their actual sanctioned areas and pay them to be able to smoke it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
If
wow.
you go out on the strip, you can go to jail for it. You don't, but you
Yeah,
could.
people
Right.
still do it all day long.
But if you go to the
yeah.
marijuana smoking bars regulated by the state, you're good. It's like,
Wow.
Yeah.
but
they're going to figure out a way to tax it. They're going to figure out a way to make
Right.
money on it. That's for
Right.
sure.
But that's the thing. Like when we look at Brian Koberger and people start saying, "Well, he's an H addict," that is completely different. And I've been around all of them. When you're incarcerated, you're around all of them. You know who's on what. You know who's on an upper. You know who's on an opiate. You know who's smoking. Spice is big over here. You got H, white China. You got them all. They're all right there. I mean, the inside the penitentiary, you get more of it than you do on the streets. It's all there.
Yeah.
But you see the personalities of everybody. And look, I happen to be housed with some of the real, actual big boys. These were the big boys. They were bigger than me, for sure. Definitely more intimidating than I could ever come across as. You didn't find many of them using H.
No.
You found them on uppers, and you found them on like pills and anything to get the blood flowing within them. They were not on downers. And when they were on downers, they were out for like a month sleeping and calm and collected. And that's when you actually wanted to hit them up for a honey bun or talk and find out about, because they were so mellow that they couldn't do anything. So I get everybody reacts differently. I do. But I've been around the criminal mind with the addiction and the narcotics, and I've seen the interaction of it. So
Well, I wonder if he was drug tested when he was arrested.
you're not allowed to
That'd
be.
be a good question.
You're not
He wasn't
allowed to be.
Really?
Unless you're on a drug violation or a drug charge.
Huh.
They can't
Interesting.
even ask you to do it.
Huh.
Wow.
They can't even request it.
Okay.
Interesting.
I've only learned that through experience.
Yeah. Right. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
I've only
right.
learned it through experience.
I was going to ask a question real quick from Dark Angel. She says, is it really possible for one person to do this crime by themselves and not get any DNA in the car, office, or home? Ironic, it's only touch DNA found if it was such a bloody crime scene.
That's a really good
Take it
question.
away.
You want me? I mean, I don't think it's possible. I think it is possible for one person to do this type of crime, but I don't believe it's somebody. I don't believe it's Brian Koberger. I don't believe this is a different type of individual. I don't believe that this is a scholar that committed these crimes.
No.
The second part of that question is one person doing it without getting any DNA anywhere.
Right.
I mean, I guess I think anything's possible.
If they came prepared with a change of clothes, I mean, in the Army, we used to take baths with baby wipes, out in the field. So if a person came prepared and took all their dirty stuff with them, they could have done it, but I don't think they could have done it in 9 minutes. Not all
No.
that.
They would have needed more time.
That's absurd. That's absurd.
I think the way to dissect that question, to answer that the best way, is could one person stab somebody and kill 4 people with a knife? Yes. Could they do it in a short period of time? Yes. Sure. Could they do it with all the additional factors that this case brings into play? Now you start getting into some really crazy types of the short time frame, the no blood found in the car. There's no way you go commit this crime. And again, I can only rely on what I know from my experiences. That's all I can do. And I've been around people that have done horrendous crimes, maybe not to this extreme,
right?
But they've taken people's lives in a very graphic way. And within the experience, it's the mentality that you have to, one, be able to commit that crime, two, the emotional capability to accept that you're committing this crime. Because if I come over to you, Lucky, and I just stab you, depending on my mindset is how I'm going to emotionally take that.
Right.
If I am in a gripping, really upset manner, I can stab you, but later I'm going to feel bad about what I've done, and emotionally I won't handle it as well.
Right.
We're still watching this kid sit before everybody where they've stated he took 4 lives of college kids. And now we're a year and a half later. You don't see an ounce of emotion in any way that he regrets anything. You don't see anything like where he's stumbling backwards when he speaks, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. There's no emotion to the effect of what someone that commits a crime like this, a normal person, would feel. Now, if I'm that type of person that just don't care, I'm one of the serial killer breeds, or the people that can take advantage of children, or somebody that is willing and capable of diving into this type of crime. You would not be trying to become law enforcement with a PhD education to solve crime if you're one that wants to commit it. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, and you have to think about this. Think about, you have your suspect, but you still have your victims. So unless those victims were just laying still, just kind of waiting their turn, it seems odd that because one person wouldn't have been able to contain 4 people. No. So I don't understand how because the way they make it sound like he just went from one person to another, to another, to another.
As if it was easy.
As if they were just not moving.
Right.
Why wasn't anybody moving around? That's what I don't understand. And I actually think it was Christy Gonzalez that said in an interview, like it's odd that they took them one at a time. Right. In succession. And that's strange that nobody was moving around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have been around. Have you been in a bar fight before where it's you against a couple other people?
Yeah.
And you just start swinging for the heavens? Well, I mean, that's obviously a very different scenario because everybody's close proximity to you right here. And think about the hell and the chaos of fighting those people off. Well, now you got to go up
live.
Yeah, now you got to go up and down stairs, and you got to handle a blade in your hand. Trust me, holding a blade in your hand in a crime like this, that thing's flying out of your hand. It's sliding in your hand. It's turning backwards. You're hitting yourself. You're hitting the wall.
And then your hand's that close, so you're getting body fluid all over your hand, all over the weapon, and you've got two roommates in the house still. You got one on the ground floor. You don't know what happened to her. She could have driven off a long time ago.
Right.
You don't know what's happening to her because you have no containment. There's no containment for this suspect.
Right.
Well, and at the end of the day, where was Hunter Johnson? I just have a feeling he was in the home. I just have a feeling he was there somewhere.
He's possible. He never left.
Right.
He might have been in that 6th bedroom. Who the hell knows?
That's true as well.
Is he the informant? Is he the witness? He's the first one that they called on scene. And the
but
front
he didn't-
door was
that-
left open at 8 o'clock in the morning. Did he go running out of the house saying, holy shit, holy shit?
So
I want
that's what
out
I'm
of this
curious.
mess.
Maybe that's why they don't release that 911 because they know he's on there. And if he's their informant, maybe he told them on the phone something about Brian. And that's
Right.
why they don't want to release it because he's the informant they're protecting, maybe.
So
Maybe the
you guys can
girlfriend
answer
was
this.
there with him.
You know, I'm
Maybe
curious,
his girlfriend was there.
but what time did he get there in the morning? What time did they
Yeah,
call
we don't-
people over in the morning? Because regardless of who went there and who was there, 911 was not called until noon. So
Right.
what time did all these friends arrive? And how do you get all of these people not to call law enforcement? Because it seems like
Right.
at some point they would be wondering, where's law enforcement? Where's the
Right.
first responders?
Right.
Why
Well, the
don't we hear
Snapchats
more?
and stuff were going out at like 8:30, I thought.
That's
So,
what they said.
so
Why
that's,
don't we hear more about the front door being propped open by a walking neighbor that saw the door? Were they airing out? Did somebody already get to the scene? They've already been called over and they had said, holy shit, it stinks so bad in here. I'm going to
Yeah,
open this door.
that's why I
And
think the
they're
doors
actually
were open.
up in the house. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the whole odd part about these crimes is that these two or I don't want to say surviving, these two roommates that were in the house. That was the first thing that caught my attention about this case. And I just think that, I think they have the answers. I think they have the answers, to what happened.
Yeah.
well, I know one answer I have is if the three of us right here were the surviving roommates in that house and didn't dial 911 for 8 hours, all three of us would be sitting in jail with Brian
Yep.
Koberger right now.
Without
They
a
would be
doubt.
trying to figure out what our
Without a
part
doubt.
is.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's just my
Hey,
opinion.
AR, I want to make sure I get these prizes given out here before we part ways. I know we're getting close, so I just wanted to
Yeah,
mention.
let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
right.
It's
All
fine,
right.
Matt.
So here we go. The first contest to win this sweet Murder Metal Mayhem t-shirt, and you'll be like the coolest person on the block with that, baby. And you get a die cut sticker, and all you got to do is email murdermetalmayhem@gmail.com with the answer to this question. Who is that over my shoulder, that clown up there? I'll give you a hint. He's from Chicago. He's a serial killer. So you got that hint. That's an easy one. You got to do this by midnight
Yes.
Central Standard Time. Email murdermetalmayhem@gmail the answer to that question. And then the second prize, a different question, will be for my book, Deeper Than Dead. This is a novel. It's illustrated, so it's pretty cool. I think you'll dig it if you like horror, thrillers, and stuff like that. So the second question is, who is the serial killer on my other shoulder? Wow, I'm all confused here because it's in the reverse. Over my other shoulder. This one may be a little bit harder to recognize, but he was an attorney or an aspiring attorney. I'll give you that hint. There's been quite a few docuseries about him, but he went on a little cross-country rampage and ended up in Florida at a sorority house, and he murdered quite a few people in a short span of time. So it does happen. But there's your two questions. You email me at Murder Metal Mayhem. You can only give me one answer per person, and put your country in the email so I know where you're from. And I'll use a random number generator to pick the winner. You got to have that in by midnight Central Time. So a few hours from now. So
I just
There you
guessed
go.
Michael Myers. Yay, I win. Sorry.
We're pissed off because you don't even have shirts in my size. When you get some
Yeah.
extra small,
large and extra large is all I'm in, but I'm getting new shirts, AR. I promise I'll get you one.
So I actually, my little giveaway, like yours, is I'm going to answer a question that many people actually have put within the comments on many of my videos, asking me about my nose piercings. Why in the hell would I pierce my nose just like this? It's to piss people off. It really is. I grew up in a very God, I can't even think of the word. military-based family that the very first time I came home, I got my ear pierced, and my dad ripped it out of my ear at full force and said, "You will never do this again." And I looked right at him and I said, "You want to make a bet?" So the next day I came back and I had my other ear pierced. This one's still bleeding. I said, "I told you." And he ripped that one out.
Oh, damn.
So as I got older, I said, "All right, well, now we're going to put in some permanent piercings in the old nose. And I dare anybody to even try to take these out."
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But
want
that's
to
a
do
little
that.
humor. April Fool. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a rebel. I just like defaced myself to make myself uglier than I started at. But, you know, it's fun that way, right?
That's right.
Yeah, we definitely had some fun tonight. A good conversation between the three of us, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure, guys.
Appreciate Jen, your wife, helping out, and my lovely wife Jennifer,
Yeah.
doing some moderator work behind the scenes. So we appreciate that. Very
You know,
much.
I truly, it's a blessing to work with both of you guys. In the difficulty of the platform that we work within. I mean, we see it everywhere. The toll that this type of community takes mentally, emotionally, because we work hard on cases, we work hard on research. These are emotional things. We have victims, we have things that happen. I'm never saying that the drama is a legitimate thing that people need to get into, but I get a little bit of an understanding for where people get out of whack with each other. But you guys are amazing stand-up people. It's been a privilege to work with you. I want to say that it's a privilege. Lucky you and I behind the scenes have had a good time. Pete, you and I have had a great time. I consider both of you guys friends.
Yeah.
And I look forward to being able to do a few more things here or there with you guys. But we all do focus on our own work as well. And I appreciate you guys' hard work. I definitely am a fan and I'm a follower and a supporter. So
Willis wants to do a tattoo showdown.
A tattoo showdown.
What's that?
I said Willows wants you guys to do a tattoo showdown.
Oh, man. That could get very interesting, right?
Well,
I've got quite a few.
I think I told her I would show her my hands in my last video, and I don't remember if I ever did that actually. Now
you know, if we sit here, Lucky, and went tattoo for tattoo, we might be here a while.
It could take a minute.
Yeah,
let's not do that on a live, guys.
Yeah, my wife doesn't even want. We may have to expose some body parts that don't need to be exposed.
Yeah, we don't need that, AR. We don't need that.
I'm covered, so I mean, it's not even a worthy battle because you've got what means many things to you, the importance of yours that stand out to you, and I got mine. So
that's right.
Respect and love to you guys for yours, but I'm not showing mine off. My great physique,
right?
That wears an extra small shirt.
Oh man,
guys, it's been a blast. I hope we get to do it again soon. And
me too.
You know, I always try to keep it at a good time for you guys and for us. And enjoy your night. I love the community. Lucky, why don't you send us off? And Pete, you as well. I'm done talking.
Just really quick, though, I did want to say thank you, everybody, for being in here with us this live. I'm sorry if I didn't get to answer all your questions. It's kind of a discussion, so we can't always get in all the questions, but we definitely appreciate each and every one of you all being here. And with that, go ahead, Pete and Lucky.
Thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate it very much. You could see the camaraderie here. It's legit. It's real. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this and appreciate everybody that checked it out.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you to everybody and AR and Pete. I really appreciate you guys inviting me on. I had a lot of fun. You know, this was my first live.
I know.
Awesome.
I've never done a live before, so I'm glad I got to do it with you guys.
Yeah, this is my second.
Yeah, so I'm glad I got to do it with you guys.
Excellent.
You guys are awesome. We'll do it again. I truly appreciate both of you. And behind the scenes, let's get together, do some more videos and some back and forth between videos. let's give the subscribers exactly what they deserve. And that's great work between all three of us.
Absolutely.
We'll do it.
And everybody that's asking how you know if you win Pete's stuff is you email him before midnight, and he will randomly select a winner that has the correct answer to his question.
Tomorrow morning, I'll do the random number generator. I'll email everybody, let them all know whether you're right or wrong, and then who's the winner. So you'll know.
And just know we're as corrupt as the Moscow Police Department, so it's already in the bag. We already have a winner. But please email us so we can put you on our speed dialer and spam you for the
Yeah, right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you, and we'll talk again very soon.
I appreciate it.
See ya.
Have a good night.
Have a great night.